Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here, first of all. So today we will cover the topic on best practices and challenges for upgrading to Business Central on cloud. So from our experience doing the upgrades in the past years, we have covered a lot of issues and managed to fix those. And we will share with you valuable insights and basically the strategies which will help you navigate the upgrade process. Moving to the cloud is not an easy task, but if you plan it accordingly and follow your upgrade strategy, you can do it with less issues facing during the upgrade process. However, upgrade to Business Central on cloud brings us also some new functionalities which new customers can benefit of. So we will share a lot of things now further in presentation, but before we start, let me introduce myself. So we can move to the presentation now. So I am Stefan Šošić. I am co-owner of BC. Together with me, it is Nemanja Kutlesic. He is also co-owner at BC. So our careers generally are pretty similar. So at the early beginning of our careers, we started with NAV. And at the early beginning, when Business Central was announced and released, we started basically Business Central, investigating and doing development. At that point, really small amount of functionalities have worked, but after time, Microsoft managed to fix those issues and bring also some of the great functionalities. So I will leave now stage to Nemanja to tell us more what we will cover in this session.
Okay. So in this session, we'll cover the main aspects of the upgrade to the latest version of the Business Central. As you can see in the agenda, we have several topics. Why to move to the cloud? When is the right moment for the upgrade? We have, for the upgrade process, two ways. One way is up to the BC 14 for any previous version, and the second way is from the BC 14 to BC on cloud. We will see what are the common data migration challenges and best practices during the upgrade. And for the end, we'll leave customizations, extensions, and code-related challenges that we faced and that we will share with you. And for the last, we will cover case studies and lessons learned during the upgrade process.
Okay, so first thing first, let's cover some basic stuff at the beginning. So why even move to the cloud? So first of all, like already mentioned, cloud brings us some great functionalities. Some of those we will mention now. So first of all, it is enhanced security. Business Central is on-cloud environment which has firewall routines, and Microsoft, as already told in previous session yesterday, are fighting really hard against hackers. So they're really giving some efforts to keep the environment safe and your data inside that environment safe, not to leak outside the environment. Next thing would be the centralized location, because if we move everything on cloud, it would be much better for integration with other Microsoft apps. Then we have regular automatic updates. So Microsoft releases continuously bug fixes, features, and security patches, which helps your company to benefit from it and keeping your BC version up to date. And now we have also the cost of maintenance. When we move to the cloud, we will reduce our cost. Why? Because on-prem infrastructure can be really expensive. All the data centers, servers, and the maintenance of those servers can be really expensive. On the cloud, we have, of course, some limitation which we'll cover later in the presentation, but we will have reduced cost, and we will have a possibility for scalability. What does it mean? So the environment can scale up to our needs. So if our needs of business basically increase, we can basically increase our environment resources, or if the environment needs decrease, we can also decrease the environment resources. And on that way, we can also save the costs at some specific time. And the flexibility also which cloud brings us. So we can access the Business Central cloud from each device, which has internet access all around the globe. So now, when we covered why even to move to the cloud, let's cover when is the right moment for the upgrade. So first of all, let's ask ourselves some questions. So first of all, is the version of your solution still supported by Microsoft? And that will tell us more, Nemanja.
Let's take a look at the picture. So Microsoft introduced for the Business Central from version 15 modern life cycle policy. That policy includes 18 months frame of the upgrades. First 6 months covers the features, bugs, and regulatory fixes. And after that, we only have 12 months for the bugs and regulatory fixes. So as you can see on the right side, we can see all the versions and until when they are supported. For the versions before BC 15, we have fixed life cycle policy, and that means that BC 14 will be supported mainstream until October 23, and final date until you will be able to use it, or there will be additional charges, is October 25.
Okay, so there is a high chance that your solution which you are planning to upgrade is not supported by Microsoft, so there is one more reason to upgrade it. Next question would be, do we have demand for the new features? The new features which Business Central Cloud brought to us is enormous, so more and more benefits are coming, and Microsoft won't stop at this point. So next is your solution lightly or heavily customized? And that question will basically tell us, is now the right moment to do the conversion immediately, or we need to do some additional steps and then to proceed with the upgrade? And more about that, Nemanja will cover.
Okay, let's see what solutions can be moved right now to the cloud. If you don't have customizations, go for it. Obsolete customizations, so if you have any solution that you want to obsolete or already that feature is covered by Microsoft in the newest version, or you have light customizations. Let's see what do we consider as light customization. So light customizations, also known as additive changes. So as you can see on the slides, changes in standard objects, but additive ones. So fields, page actions, or any new functionality that you add to the base application, that can be slightly easy to move to the cloud. But or custom new objects, or any your custom functionality that does not have much impact on the standard one. Solutions that are also easy to implement are the solutions that are already SaaS compatible, has web client compatible. We will see later on what web client limitations are, and that you have all standard event publishers available for your customizations. So on another side, we have heavy customized solutions, and those solutions have destructive changes in the standard objects. So if you changed or removed primary key, change some standard fields, or increase the length of the fields, removed standard code, or place some other parts of the code, that we consider as a destructive change. A lot of customizations or complicated standard functionalities like posting routines or something else where you have a lot of customizations, that's sometimes harder to re-implement, refactor, and to implement. Or any other complex situation. So that look like in few steps if it is heavy customized. So you have your old solution. You need to upgrade to BC on-prem, BC 14, the latest version, and from there you can go to the BC SaaS. When are you ready to move to the BC SaaS? There are several things that we will cover. You need to analyze, are all standard events publisher created? Maybe some of them in the upgrade phase you requested based on your needs. are add-ons created on app source. So if your solution had any add-ons, you should investigate, is that add-on already on app source, or when it will be, or what you will do with that add-on. Reimplementation is completed. So after we move to the BC 14, we identify all the places that needs to be reimplemented. And after all of that is reimplemented, we can move to the step to the BC on SaaS and any other possible limitations that are removed. So already on the app source, your add-on? Well, we have a lot of applications on the app source, so maybe there is highly possibility that your add-on is already there. If we take a look at these changes among the versions, we can see that the growth of the enums and the interfaces and the events that increases the flexibility and the possibility to adapt to the new solution. And we can see in the next slide, in the next picture, that the number of events increases really much during the years. But maybe in some point we'll reach the point that it will start decreasing because there are a lot of events that are not used or used very few places, so Microsoft may consider to start removing them. And maybe in some point one of your events that only you use will be removed. We'll see.
Okay, let's continue with what is the right moment for an upgrade. So the important thing in the upgrade is also the database. We need to keep the integrity of the data and everything. So one key factor is also the size of the database. So if it is bigger than 80 gigabytes, it will bring us additional costs. And complexity will increase, so also the time needed for the upgrade to the cloud will increase, even though, so you had a chance yesterday to listen to the presentation where data migration to the cloud is done and new procedures are being made to basically fast up the process for migration to the cloud. The important question there is, do you really want to keep all your historical data? What does it mean? So we could move to the cloud with clean start, so not to bring any data from the old solution. We can partially move just some of the data, like master data, ledgers, or we can decide to move everything. Do you want to keep your customization and business processes? So from our experience, in a lot of projects, a lot of solutions have a lot of business processes which they don't use regularly. So those processes, maybe if they are really hard to re-implement or they are using stuff which are not basically compatible with the cloud, those are worth reconsidering to be left behind. And if there is really a need to develop those functions later on, maybe those will be included even in the base app or system app, or you will use more modern techniques and helper code units to accomplish that logic. Add-ons also are key role in our upgrade. So all add-ons which we want basically to use need to be either available on app source or the add-on provider needs to provide those add-ons as PTE extension or per tenant extension. So if we don't have those add-ons, we really need to reconsider what will we do with the upgrade. So in those cases, we cannot just continue using those add-ons. Maybe we will reach to the partner with add-ons and basically see what is the timeline, when is the plan that those add-ons will be on cloud. Are you ready for the to live with web client? So from the conversation with basically clients, we hear this a lot. So most of the clients tell us that they are not ready basically for the web client. They still want to use latest BC on-prem version, which contains RTC, because they are used to it. But web client brings us also additional functionalities which can improve our productivity. So for those clients, I recommend highly to basically train those customers and show them additional functionalities which Web Client brings to Business Central. Let's move to the upgrade process. So we have more complex upgrade process and the ideal case scenario upgrade process. So more complex is, of course, if we are moving from the classic or older versions of NAV, and then in that case, we will upgrade from earlier versions to Dynamics NAV 2015, only because we want to keep the data. If we decide that we will do the clean start, we don't need basically that middle step. We could skip that middle step and migrate to BC 14, which will, of course, bring us some challenges, doing the obsolete functions and missing procedures, but that is a possibility. In this more complex scenario, we'll have to face 2 migrates, 2 data migration. So firstly, doing the upgrade from the earlier version to NAV 2015, doing that code upgrade, and the data migration upgrade. And afterwards, we need to take that converted code in NAV 2015 and convert it to Business Central 14, so we can keep the data. After BC 14, we can use Intelligent Cloud toolkit from Microsoft and connect the BC 14 with the cloud, and on that way, just move all the data to the cloud. That is a more complex way. Of course, if the solution is that old, the more easier way and ideal scenario would be if the client has already on-prem version of Business Central, so that's from the BC Central 14. And in that case, we don't need to double the process. We just need one basically upgrade, and we can move data migration directly. So without using any Microsoft toolkits to migrate the data, so we can directly use Intelligent Cloud and move the data to Business Central on cloud. On this picture, we'll check how customized your base app is. So again, we will start from ideal scenario, and that is when we have unmodified base application. So in that case, it's pretty straightforward. We can directly convert our database to higher version, and all the code, which is basically on top of that old solution, can be moved to extension. Then we handle basically the compilation errors, if any, or compatibility issues. But that is the easy stuff. So the harder stuff is if the base application is customized. So it could be highly customized or just lightly customized, what Nemanja already covered. And that customization, how much it is basically affecting base app, will determine how much effort you will need basically to re-implement all that stuff, because all that stuff from base application need to go to extension. So starting from customized base application, we need basically to convert the code from CIL to AL, then to do refactoring and merge. So these options, because we are speaking for cloud environment, these 3 options are no-go. So we don't want any on-prem version containing basically customized base application. Maybe that will be scenario for a short term. So in case that you are missing some of the events, like Nemanja already said, in that point, so you will stop at customized base application, and everything what was possible, you will move to customer extension. System application is no-go, so you cannot at all modify system application. And in that case, then you can move on-prem and keep it there for some time until all events are there. But we are nearly to 20K events, so really a lot of events. And with our discussion with basically Microsoft, you need basically to rethink, is it really basically necessary to request on that place, exactly that place event? So maybe there is an event, few lines up, few lines down. It requires some reimplementation, but on that way, we will not have too much similar events. And like Nemanja already mentioned, those similar events will be most probably reviewed. And we will see for the future, because first thing, it was target to move everything to the cloud. So no questions asked. But now it started basically to trend a bit down, and we can review basically those events. And even when the open source of base app and system app is coming, we'll see some events going off. If that is not the case, you have all the events necessary for the upgrade. You can uplift it for the higher version. On that way, you will have clean base application and clean system app. And on top, your customer extension separately. In that case, we will again upgrade to the Microsoft base application. Let's move to the upgrade process. In order to successfully do the upgrade process, we need to follow some steps. First step is preparation and analysis. It's marked red, so it's really important to prepare accordingly and do the proper analysis before even starting the upgrade. So it can really help you to predict basically the issues which are upcoming in the upgrade process, and basically think the strategy how to resolve them. We will cover that a bit later. So next step is, of course, merge to BC 14. That's in case we are going from the older versions of NAV. We will be using standard Microsoft tool TXT to AL. Afterwards, we'll prepare to conversion to extension. But what does it mean? So in that preparation, we will check our solution. If, first of all, we have some reports which are highly customized, and those reports need to be created as a copy on our standard range, so we can, when we do the extension, easily substitute those reports and use them on the extension. Also, we need to see if there was some field expansion in ways like a description field increasing its size, so we need to cover that, but also to cover decrease of field size, if there is any, so that especially because that will break data migration immediately, and you will need to come back to this point again. Next thing is data migration. So at this point, we can start data migration to BC 14. We'll be using just Microsoft Toolkit, officially available at Microsoft documentation. And afterwards, at the same point when we are starting data migration, we can do the conversion to extension. So after conversion to extension, we need also to fix some things. So when you do the conversion, you will have some compilation errors and also unsupported changes. Compilation errors, so removed functions and obsolete stuff, maybe. So we will cover that also later, more detailed. But those two are also pending to be fixed. So after those fixing, you can complete basically conversion to extension. After conversion to extension is completed, you install that app on the cloud environment, and you can complete data migration to the target on cloud environment. When we are speaking basically of the upgrade process, and until now we have spoken basically of analysis, so we need also to analyze the issues which can occur in the project. So most common issues are automations, so those are not supported on the cloud, so we need to see if we have any automations. Code units, XML ports, which client used basically in all the environment to search them in RTC directly. Those won't be searchable anymore in web client. Custom code in standard objects, of course, those are unsupported changes and basically need reimplementation. And benefit of basically on-prem infrastructure is direct access to server resources and basically file manipulation, so different way. Those are pretty limited on the cloud and only can be used as a stream options, but direct access to the even local file system or server resources is highly prohibited, so won't work at all. Then fields, we already mentioned this, but fields which needs to be extended for the target, and you will most probably occur on some obsolete properties on pages, tables, like test date table relation, validate table relation, so. But that's not all. So we have also modification of dataset and layouts of standard reports. Already mentioned that, so we needed to determine basically how much is customized that report and decide if we want to do report extension or we need basically to create the copy and substitute that report. But when we are substituting that report, also keep in mind that you will not basically get any updates from the Microsoft, so if there was any bug in the report which you was copying, you will transfer that bug also to the target. File operation, already mentioned, so now we are only available to use stream operations. Change parameters in standard function are prohibited, so those you won't be able to re-implement on anyway. But in case we experience a lot of clients modifying basically dimensions, so increasing of number of dimensions can be re-implemented. So most of the partners and clients just added additional parameters and on that way increased the standard logic. But now we can use the events and extend basically dimension number accordingly. So that's just one example in which parameters modifications is able to be re-implemented. But most of the stuff will be basically blocking. So you need to rethink what will be the upgrade action for those issues. Standard fields cannot be basically parts of custom keys in table extension, so you cannot combine those two on the cloud. Standard internal functions, some of the procedures which you have been able to use before, you will be most probably limited and you will face an issues. Again, those you can copy to your code unit and use, but with functions which have in scope on-prem, those will be more complex because they are using functionality which is not supported at the cloud, still .NETs maybe, so those needs to be re-implemented, so those logic has to go away and use new technology. Some of table relation changes are not allowed. What does it mean? So we can only add additional table relations and not modify the only one existing, so no deletion or not modifying the existing one, but in addition to existing one, we can add. And of course, .NET variables not supported, we need to either use Azure functions or re-implement with wrappers already existing in base app and system app. We have covered only analysis phase, which is really important to check what issues can occur. Now it is preparation phase, what you need basically to prepare from the prerequisites. So you need basically to prepare the whole database which you want to migrate, to clean it up, and decide what to merge. So most probably you will have multiple companies, so even copies of production environment, test companies, and so on. So those doesn't really make sense to migrate. So those has to go away, and you decide only to migrate what is really needed. You create database backup, you need to provide license for the old environment, and then 2 mandatory fields which are required for the cloud are object range and solution affix. So that depends whether your extension will be per tenant extension or your extension will be available on app source. So if it is per tenant extension, object range can be 50K, and solution affix can be PT. Pretty easy. But if you go to app source, so you need to request custom range from the Microsoft by submitting one Excel form for the object range and one Excel form for solution affix, and that can be handled pretty fast, in less than 5 days. So you need to do that before converting to the cloud, because app source validation, then pipeline will fail on those two. Add-ons are definitely a thing to remember also in the upgrade process. Either we are speaking to data migration or the basically code upgrade. So what is the plan for those add-ons? We need to decide what is the upgrade plan. So we will have multiple actions. So we can migrate the whole data of add-on together with add-on business logic, or just move the data from add-on if we want to keep just the data, and then we move just the tables from the add-on. Or we want to clean up the whole add-on, and then we don't have to worry about the next thing coming. But if we plan to migrate some of the data, or to get the clean start of add-on, we need to get a base version of add-on, and get target PTE add-on, or if it is existing on app source. So you need to have both versions. Why base version? It will really help you to determine what is basically customization and what is the add-on customization. So when you are doing the merge and upgrade process to Business Central 14, and the target version, of course, if it is not existing, you will not be able to use anymore data add-on. And important stuff is data migration tools. So if that add-on provider has provided you data migration tools, so you will have to have basically data migration tools on either way. So if the add-on provider didn't provide you, you will have to spend some effort and create the mapping and your data migration tools by yourself, if you still want to use that add-on. But the easier way, and I think most of the add-ons have data migration tools, so you need to get in contact with that add-on provider and get those migration tools.
Okay, we finished the analysis files, and now we are moving to the code upgrade steps. So first what we need to do, as Stefan mentioned, is to upgrade the code to the BC 14. It's mostly by the merge. After we are on the BC 14, we should fill all the missing and captions and properties. We should add the prefix, as Stefan mentioned. Either it is requested from Microsoft or you just add PTE. But keep in mind that maximum is 30 characters, and you should pay more attention to it for the fields that have more than 30 characters. Usage category, accessible permissions, application area, all of that can be easily moved by using the Microsoft tool, translation menu suite, objects for search. By using that tool, it will fill and basically replicate your menu suite, and all properties will be filled after you do the conversion. And you need to review all the field expansion based on the standard field length change. So if standard change some fields, you need to, during the merge, increase the length for those fields or decrease whatever happened. That is very important for the data migration in case anything is different in the schema that can break the upgrade of data migration. After we are successfully merged everything and resolved all issues there, we are converting our CL code to the IL, and using again Microsoft tool takes that to IL. Then we have a little bit more work to do after we do the conversion. we need to move our customized code to the extensions, either by subscribing to the standard or customer and publishers. Customer and publishers are the long way that Stefan mentioned, and think of their implementation, how you can avoid them. Try to find a better way to implement your solution. Maybe something is not needed anymore. You just need to pay more attention. And of course, you should always use, and even the tool will create multiple table extension, page extension, report extension. But that will also be a lot of things that are compilation errors or unsupported features. Later on, we'll see what are the most common. And after everything is done, just we'll create the translation files in order to have everything translatable.
So what does required reimplementation usually? So web client limitations, automations, as already mentioned, and .NET variables, integrations with external web services. Those are handled differently, what we do the communication on cloud. File system limitation, already mentioned, and other technological constraints, which mean accessing to system tables. Those need to be re-implemented on the harder way, modification of standard keys, variables, and table relations. Some of standard fields cannot be used basically as custom fields. Some of standard object properties are not supported, and some of UI features are not supported by web client. Let's move now to UCI. So, interesting part. So, if you want to go to the cloud, you need to keep in mind Universal Code Initiative. Otherwise, yeah, Microsoft introduced already a fees for it, not basically implementing the UCI. So, this is Microsoft's first cloud-first strategy. What does it mean? Only extension and no base-up modification. And from this quarter, this year, there are already fees if you are not basically compliant with UCI. How? Let's go through once again. So that means only extension, no base app modification, and target on cloud. If you still want to use UCI, you will have to pay a fee, which we cover in the next slide. But typical issues which prevent basically UCI compliance would be file operations, .NET's print operations, direct access to SQL, or just missing events for reimplementation. So maybe we are just waiting for that event. That's okay, and that will take shorter time. But if it is some of the other issues above, you need to think about reimplementing those. What are the fees basically for using it this year? So these are the fees. And from the 2026, we will see what will be the cost if you don't follow the UCI anymore. How does it look now when you want to purchase basically the licenses and you are not compliant with UCI? So you will have to buy also that implemented code is not cloud optimized and implemented code is not in the extension. And in the order, we can see basically for the two licenses of Business Central Premium, we also have two fees, one for code not being cloud optimized and one for code not in the extension. So yeah, you can prevent a little bit those fees. Microsoft has also partner programs which you can basically participate, and you will have basically a discount on those values. Technical tasks which you need to cover for web client redesign. So we will just go through this list, which should be reviewed when we are going to the web client. And that's grid layout and its properties for rows, columns, and row span. Those are not supported anymore on cloud, needs to be reviewed. If design can be re-implemented on another way, most probably it can. So we didn't face any issues with re-implementation not to look on same way on the cloud. Review on lookup trigger for the fields which are not editable, reviewing the triggers on close page and on query close page. We'll cover that separately a bit later. Reviewing basically report run without basically request page. .NETs with property run on client. Those, of course, cannot be re-implemented at all and needs to be basically replaced with standard functionality. And reviewing, again, file functionality, because that is really common to see in all solutions. Data migration challenges. So we have focused until now on upgrade processes. Now it's time for data migration. So it is really important, like I said, to ensure all the data is moved to the cloud. But in order to do that, we also mentioned cleaning of database. We maybe don't need all the data, so we need also to analyze the database. If the database is specific to some region, like German, Finland, Norway, so using the special characters, you will have to pay attention to collation and basically region settings for your machine which you are doing the upgrade. And you need, again, like we did for the upgrade process, you need to create a robust data strategy for data migration also. Some of the SaaS limitations which are existing now are no direct access for Azure SQL. So all data checking, modification of single records directly on database or writing custom queries, batches and everything, that is no go anymore. So manual backup is also not possible, and you can only get emergency restore through Microsoft support. Common things to remember before starting even the data migration. So all debugger breakpoints which you have in your solution needs to be removed. Usually table reservation entry is only with one primary key, so you need to get also let know as a secondary key. Empty records in item category product group table will also make you an issue when you are starting data migration. And those are just some of the issues which you can face while doing the data migration, most common ones. But yeah, it pretty much depends from which version to which version you are doing the data migration. So if you are doing the data migration from Classic to NAV or NAV to Business Central 14, you will use Microsoft data migration toolkits, all available. Or if you are doing basically data migration from BC 14 to cloud, you will use, as mentioned before, Intelligent Cloud Data Migration Tool. Again, I put it add-on data migration tools, not the thing to forget. So especially if you use some of the add-ons which contains your data, your documents, which you are uploading to them. So that's most probably that client wants to keep that. One thing also to remember, system data won't be migrated, either using Intelligent Cloud Toolkit or standard Microsoft Toolkit. So users, personalizations, saved use, and record links cannot be basically migrated. But let's focus on the record links. So you cannot use standard Microsoft tools, but there is a way still. So with record links challenge, so record links, for those maybe who don't know what they are used, so all the nodes from the old environment won't be transferred to the target environment. And in those cases, you can really easily implement those data migration. So either you create, I just put one way of migrating those data, but there is plenty of it. So point is just exporting and importing it on the new cloud environment. So one way is creating XML port, exporting on the old environment, then creating same XML port on the cloud environment and doing the import. You don't need basically to use XML port. You can use basically also XML creation code unit on the target, to parse that XML. So really plenty of ways, but on this way you can get all the nodes from the old environment to the new.
That was related all to data. Let's see about the code. After we convert our solution to the IL, we would need to do little cleanup, and there is pretty handful extension that you can get. I'm sure most of you are already using, but not sure about this command. So code cleanup actions that can do a lot of things. So after the conversion, files are not formatted or anything. So instead of going to every file and doing the save or something like that, you can just define the set of actions that you want to run, and you can do it for the whole project. So either it is format document, add missing parentheses, sort variables, or format document, whatever you want. So yeah, format document two types. Okay. Yeah, that is about that extension. Another extension that is pretty new, not sure how much of you heard of it. It is IL packages, and we have, I hope you can see it. That extension allows you to download any package version, and that can be very useful to compare against different BC versions and how your solution works. So yeah, that is pretty new and also works only on the latest Visual Studio Code version. So as you can see in a few moments, we already got symbols. We don't need any environment to download those. Some things that usually needs to be implemented are listed in the list. So how to implement all the XML things that now have different types, streams, encoding, HTTP documents, XML DOM management, or even record template moved to the code unit template. All of this we provided as a PDF file that you can scan and you can download, and many things from there you will find easy way to implement it. I will give you a few moments if you want to scan it, but it will always be available also after the session. I hope that you will be able to scan it. And that file looks something like this. So we have old, how it was implemented, and a new syntax, how you can implement that line of code. And for that is another example for the templates and for many more that we mentioned.
So the rest of those you can find basically in the document provided, which you can download. But I already mentioned a few times basically that you cannot use anymore extension to system tables. So you can still re-implement those. So if you have some customization like this, so adding a few fields to just user table, you can still create, you will get an error when converting, of course, but you can create a mapping table and basically re-implement that functionality on that way. This is just one of the suggestions, so there are always multiple ways, but it's still possible to do. We also mentioned before on-close page and on-query close page triggers. So when running those triggers now on cloud with the run command, the trigger on query close page will always trigger. So when we had in old environment, just run command, it didn't trigger basically on query close page. So what you need to do is basically analyze the solution after the conversion and basically search for all on query close pages and review if those are containing any piece of code which will basically be triggered not intentionally. So definitely one thing to pay attention to.
And now it's time for a little exercise. So we have only one question for you. Please, if you can, grab your phones, and we would have also one more QR code to scan. I hope that you are connected to wireless and have an internet connection. So this is the QR code that you can scan. I hope that it can be scanned. I make it big enough. I will give a few more moments and move to the next slide. It will also be available on the next slide. And I hope this will work. Yeah. Okay. We already have some answers. So this is live. Let's see about the results, how you are doing your merge. If you cannot join by QR code, you can always join the link with the code. Okay, we have a lot of answers, and as I can see, most of you are using three-way merge. That's good. But for you that are using two-way merge, let's see. And that for ones that never did it, it's totally fine. Okay, I think we have pretty good result. No need to wait anymore. So, what do you think? This is two-way merge. We have on the left side source and on the right side target. This is some piece of code in the standard, so there are no comments. Maybe someone forgot it. Maybe it's custom change, or it is standard change. Based on this two-way merge view, we cannot tell it. Let's take a look at three-way merge. On the right side, we have our customized application. In the middle, we have base application without any of our customizations. And on the far left, that is our target version. That is the newest BC 22, how it looks like. And we can see between these two versions, when we compare the base and our customized base, we can see that this line is additionally added. And we are sure that this is the customization or add-on, basically, if we had add-ons, and what we are doing about them. But we can now see that there is a conflict between these versions because Microsoft added one line and we also added one line. And down there, we have conflict, and the automatic P4 merge does not know what to do. We need to tell him what do we want to keep. If it is, for example, add-on or something else, we can exclude it. But in this case, that is our custom change, and developer forgot to put a comment. So we can choose both and also add for custom comment in the editor down there. We can add custom comment in the future, so we know that that is custom change and we don't end up in the same situation again.
So let's see what to do after the upgrade. So let's imagine you have successfully done basically the data migration part, you have done the code upgrade part, so what now? So first thing first, we need several things to check. One of those things would be the page layout. So we need to have the old solution also available. So we need to compare basically an old solution layout with the new solution layout. In those scenarios, layout could be a bit different, of course. Do the standard modifications of the fields, of removal fields, moving the fields, creating additional groups. So those are really things to reconsider, basically. But again, the page layout should be as similar as possible. Same as report layout. So we mentioned two ways. So if we was doing the copy, we could still experience some of the issues. So first issue can be maybe to layout related, but we can also get the issue regarding basically the data inside the report, and that would indicate us that we didn't do data migration properly. So maybe some of the data is missing in the report, maybe in the report some of the special characters don't show up correctly. So all of those things we can basically check in the target version of report. But of course, the best way is to print both the reports and compare it if they are one-on-one. That's basically the target and the goal. Then we do some data comparison, so to check if data migration is done successfully. All the data which was existing should be existing now on the target, except, again, of the system tables. Then basic master data input test should be done. What does that mean? So for that kind of tests, you should basically test master data. In which ways? So creation, for example, of master data, then in order to see if there was any error by creation, what was the result basically on the old environment, did on the old environment had any basically trigger on insert or event which would basically fire upon insertion of that master data or something like that. But after insertion, you will also fill some fields, of course, and check if all the validation works properly. So in that case, also you need both environments running to compare the behavior. So if you are expecting an error from the old environment and not getting it on the target, so that's again the issue which needs to be debugged and resolved. And of course, deletion of those master data. After we've completed that phase, we can proceed to basic posting routines testing. So most of the clients basically modify any of the posting routines. So now on the cloud, we have even the new posting routine. When that is enabled, so I'm pretty sure that 95% of all solutions will fail. So each partner should expect to re-implement their posting routine. So it could stay like this for now, but in feature management, if you want to try out the new feature, you can still enable new posting routine. So in that case, when the new posting routine is basically turned on, you will use totally different events than existing previously. So your code won't be triggered at all. So that's one thing to expect. So if you want to use all the new stuff from Microsoft, all the new features, and you enable everything through feature management, then you will most probably get an errors. So sales, purchase, those are two mandatory things to recheck, and automation tests now. So that's really important. So the guess is that you have automated tests. If you have those automated tests, those will help you a lot. In which way? So you can run on both environments and determine easily if your core functionalities are working. That's ideal scenario. But if you don't have any automation tests, again, best way would be to create some automated tests for your core solution in order to test all the changes, because even after conversion to extension and everything, when you think you are done, you are not still done. And again, at some point, you will be most probably also required to create automation tests. So it is really nice thing to have. Okay. So let's move now to case studies and lesson learned. So we'll cover now all those issues which we had before in previous slides. So what has occurring the most? What was the issues in regards even to data migration, compilation errors, most common warnings, and so on. So for the data migration, we just mentioned a few of those. So any company names, there are a lot of companies which use a dash symbol inside those names, needs to be cleaned up. Otherwise, you get an error, like you will get for the rest of these points. So decrease of field length, it also happens, not that often, like you get for the fields which needs to be basically extended, but it happens still. Nav collation, already mentioned that you will have special characters for some regions, and you need basically to adjust collation in NAV and basically the region settings in your environment, where you are doing basically the upgrade and where you are doing the data migration. And also one of the common things is empty product group and item category. In those cases, we need just to remove that record. When we visualize those things, of course, there is really big section which represents other issues. It is pretty big list of issues which can occur during the data migration, and each data migration has its own issues, not the ones these ones repeat, but you will have the unique ones. Maybe you will have additional challenges resolving them, but you will definitely have some unique ones. For the smaller solution, of course, you can do the data migration without even any issues, but in most cases you get. So, except the other things, so the company name is really huge. We just analyzed based on the number of projects, summarized everything. So it could also mean that few of the solutions had really big amount of companies, like hundreds of companies. We had also those cases, and that hundreds of companies used the dash inside it. So it can be also related to few of the solutions, not basically generally. But yeah, this is the generally summary of a really big amount of projects. So we have field length, like we mentioned, nav collation, empty data, and other. Let's move to the compilation errors. So, of course, you will get for sure the scope on-prem. So a lot of procedures which you have been using before on your old environment won't be available on the cloud. So those needs to be re-implemented. So those are using either, like I said, .NET. So Microsoft will also re-implement those with the new procedures, new code units and everything. But you cannot use anymore those functionalities. Language record, temp-blob record, those are basically similar ones, but needs to be re-implemented with code unit. And you will face also, again, more and more action control fields which are not found in the target. Why that happens? Basically, there was a reason to obsolete it, so those were obsoleted at one point, and after some while now we have on SaaS a lot of actions which existed before but doesn't exist now. And file management issues, those are not limited to what was previously said, but are mentioning that direct access to file system, for example, or manipulation differently with files than with streams. So we have also visualization of those ones. So most of the things are on-prem. So for those on-prem things, re-implementation is needed. So expect when you basically upgrade to the cloud that you will have some of the time needed for implementation. Then we have not found in the target, the obsolete things which we mentioned. So also, again, those need to be removed. And if those are really crucial for your business processes, you will need to check if you will add it in your solution or there was a reason for its removal at first place. So then temp-blob code unit and language code unit, so records to code unit, it's really simple re-implementation, so won't basically spend too much time on those two, but still there is a lot of occurrences in each project, so that is really one of the things which will occur for sure. File management, 6%, but also depending on the solution. So also we had the solutions which were just doing the file management. So in your case, it could be 100%, but yeah, this is just the average, and we have also the other stuff which could occur, of course.
Okay, we covered compilation issues, and now let's move to the unsupported features. Most common unsupported feature is the property modification. We can add property modifications either to tables or pages or other places, and let's see what are the most used and not extensible properties. So you will see in the list that there are a lot of properties that cannot be used in extensions. So some of them are auto split key, blunt numbers, you cannot change card page ID, you cannot change the behavior on the page. Is it delayed insert, is it delete allowed, insert allowed? You cannot change the mix man value on the fields, not blank, multiple line. You cannot run object link. Those are all the things that you cannot change. Save values, subpage link or subpage view, usage category, and so on and so on. There are many more properties that are not extendable. Other things than properties, you cannot modify standard triggers. So insert, rename, delete, modify. For them, in most cases, we have implementation. We have the events that we can use, but there are a lot of situations that there are radical change in those triggers that needs to be rethinked. Some of them also have isHandle parameter in the event that you can skip that code and place yours. But there are also the situations where it is not possible and you need to find another way to do it. So we are going to the cloud and any modifications that are destructive or changes in the base app are not allowed. Code modifications on validate triggers. So validate triggers, any changes there, if there is no event, you cannot do it. You can subscribe on before or not or on after, but all the changes in validate triggers or standard procedures. Very common is that we see that partners insert parameters into standard procedures. So extend the procedure with a parameter or return type or things like that. Nothing of that is allowed. And very, very common is key removal or extend. We have some possibilities to extend some keys, but we can only extend the keys from the same application. So if we want to extend the standard key, we can only use standard fields. If we want to create a new key, we can only use standard fields, or we can use extension fields, but we cannot combine those two. And if we take a look at the graphical view of those, most of them are other. Okay, we cannot list them all, but property modifications, very big part, standard procedures, and others in smaller amount. But yeah, trigger modifications, validate trigger, parameters in standard procedures, yeah, similar to those, but yeah, a lot of things that are changed. Other, next to the unsupported features, are common warnings. So most common warning is marked for removal. So that is the thing that is marked for removal, or maybe some things are already removed and you cannot use that and you need to find implementation. You can use, if it is marked for removal for some time, but after that time, after that version that they mention, it will not be able for using. Sorting should be part of the sort field should be part of the keys for the table. In most of the cases, that code cap reports that warning. In some cases, it makes sense. In some other, not. There are situations even if you add that it will still keep to report that. So maybe in that cases you can use Pragma to ignore that warning or to leave it with it. Implicit conversion options to enums and other way around, that is very common one, and that is the place where a lot of mistakes can be made. Why is that? So if you previously extended standard option and that is now enum, you will create enum extension, right? If that enum extension, it will have your ID range, either it is 50K or your SAS ID range 7 million something. Then you will have places in standard where enum is not, where option is not converted to the enum. That place is then enum is assigned either to option or other way around, and for the options that you extended, for example, if you are still in the customization phase of the base app, not yet on the cloud, IDs will not match, and you will have the situation that you are assigning ID of the enum, that we are assigning enum value to the option ID value that does not exist because enum ID is much higher. On the reports, usually we have create totals, page number, and other things that are usually reported as a warning. In most cases, those can just be deleted, not much work there to do. Promoted properties for actions on list parts is very also common one, and let's see the graphical view. So we have most of them are marked for removal, and for those we need to implement. Implicit conversion, I mentioned, pay more attention to it, invest some time to resolve it, to find the best way to do it. Create totals on pages, the numbers, on the reports, very common because there are a lot of reports that are usually changed and copied, but Stefan already mentioned that those should be paid attention because of all the upgrades that you will get later and so on and so on. Then we have others like promote list parts in smaller amounts, sorting fields, and others.
So, yeah, when you do all of that stuff, so we covered most of it, but what are the things to do when you basically complete everything? Does your work end there? So after the conversion, the job is not of course, done. SaaS development basically brings us a lot of functionalities which we can use. So code reimplementation is a really big part of it. So converted code is not ideal solution. It is just the fastest way to get to extension and to have a starting point for the future of your app. You can do developments with your app. But one thing not to forget when you are going to outsource is that you can mark a lot of your procedures and objects as internal. On that way, when you decide later on to either delete or change parameters of your procedure, so to do breaking change, you will not have to face basically that issue in validation pipeline of the app source. So that's really a smart option before you are publishing to app source. Of course, the code updates, so keep all the new guidelines from AL, all the regions reimplementation, so maybe your also solution can be reimplemented differently. So also we mentioned the events. So events have been used on first line, second line. So maybe there is a way to better integrate your changes into base app customization. And again, so parallel to this presentation, Vjeko and Valdo are presenting interfaces. So the great way also to reimplement a lot of standard functionalities and to have all the customization then extendable later on in the cloud and to bring new functionality are interfaces. If you have not used them, we highly recommend to start using them basically and to explore the benefits, how you can basically dynamically modify your solution. We will leave now this time for the questions, not to more and more dig deeper because the topic is very large. We wanted to end on some place, not to be continued further. But yeah, we are still open for the questions. We have also here a few shirts for those who ask questions. And yeah. Just a second, so just to see which one to use.
This one is working. that also, okay.
Okay, in conversion to apps, there is a standard pattern you can suggest how to separe the new customization in one app, two app, and or for the customer, you decide what do you think at start. Do you have a... Okay. Now we have a problem how to separate the customization.
Okay, yep.
Okay, have some tips or to design the configuration, the final configuration?
What would be the how to resolve the limitations of basically moving to extension? Is that a...
See, the standard tips to choose if one vertical app is the solution or a family of apps is the solution to go. There is some tips or no?
To create multiple apps or to create one, right?
The question is one app or family?
So that's basically
the
the decision which each partner needs to be aware of, because you can create multiple solutions that will also fast up your development environment. One big app also slows down. You can use Microsoft principle of creating apps, so having one big app inside it multiple apps. But when you're doing it internally, you will compile one by one extension. But when you are publishing to app source, you will publish the main extension and push everything. But if you are planning to create multiple apps, you need to have in mind also CI/CDs issues and efforts to create basically CI/CDs with dependencies, and also publishing on app source also is more difficult. Maintenance also brings also more work.
During analysis of cost, the difference from one only app in a data migration process or family, when you done only one app, what's the effort less from a family?
So you will get basically the errors that you are missing some tables on basically on the target extension, or if you basically publish at the same time and do that at that time data migration, you will have again all the tables at the target, so it won't be any problem. So the thing is, when do you want to publish those apps? So if you are planning to publish those apps one by one, so you are finishing one extension, let's move the data to it and let's publish it, then you will have to force data migration, because you will have structural data changes and it will occur, errors will occur. But if you finish all the apps which you are planning to do and put it on an environment and then trigger the standard Microsoft data migration tools, there won't be any issues.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Here left.
Welcome.
Thank you. We can use BC 14 as a stepstone to move to migrate to the cloud. How long will this still be supported?
BC 14. Right?
BC 14 will be supported it's under fixed lifecycle policy, and the end date after it is supported is October 25. But after October 23, there will be maybe some additional charges. More about that you will see on the Microsoft website about fixed lifecycle policy, what is supported and what's not, and you always need to upgrade to the latest version of that to follow all the security patches and so on. But you can still use it up till some point, but maybe in the future there will be some additional charges.
The point with maintenance and supported version is that at some point you will not get basically the security patches, bug fixes and everything, so you can still request for Microsoft to add it, but those are really low priority and not to expect to be done soon, or maybe not to expect to be done at all. So that's the main and crucial thing to remember. Is that all?
Thank you.
Thank you.
you can throw it.
So coming back to the three-way merge thing, so when I'm starting like in old NAV version and I want to merge and compare with my changes, do you recommend that as a base version and I have some old other customer, not extensions, customizations, then should I get like for the middle a Kronos database with the other customization
Okay.
in it?
Yeah, we understand. So the question is, what should be used for the base when we are doing two-way merge? Okay, base for the two-way merge is the base of same version and same CU as your custom version. So it should be same version and same CU. And basically, if you have add-ons or not, depending what you will do with them, you should also put add-ons, or should already have received add-ons from your partner in that base version of that you needed it. So that I think that answers your question. So base version is the same version as your custom version, just without any customizations.
Okay, thank you.
In that way, you'll be sure what is customization and what is the standard. That is the main point of those two views.
And also you benefit if you have any add-ons also. So you can put in first column base, then you can put base with add-ons, and then base with add-ons and customization. And
So in multiple steps. Like.
Yep. So on that way you will split each TXT to have different ones, and three-way merge will basically be able to recognize what is the customization exactly. So that is most common case when you don't have any documentation what has been done, and happens to all solutions. Let's drop some fields here, there, some procedure here, there. So at the end you get a mess, but you can still get out of it.
In case of the preparation for the migration, you had large databases, all databases above 80 GB. Is it an experience from your projects, or is it the value which comes from Microsoft?
Sorry?
80 gigabytes value, you are asking about that.
Yeah.
So 80 gigabytes is the default what you get on the BC SaaS, and that is the value that we compare. You can add additional gigabytes by the users that you buy and so on, but the 80 gigabytes is starting point, and that's why you need to decide how big is your solution. Is it much more or a little bit more, and to analyze the data, which tables are most of the gigabytes used and so on. That is the point.
Yeah, okay.
Can be data reduced in some tables.
You
all
have
the
to
data
check
is
if you can drop some data to migrate.
And of course, if you are using basically a lot of images, those are basically filling the database much quicker and quicker, its size. So you can, like Microsoft presented, so in the system app you have now blob connector, so you can drop them online, and then that way it's much cheaper to pay Azure Blob Storage than to basically pay additional storage to have in your environment.
Okay.
Do we have some more questions?
Yeah, I have a question regarding strategy. Let's say I have BC 14 now with
Can you put a little bit closer?
I have BC with a lots of modification, and we wanted to go to the cloud. And what should we do? Should we first remove all those go to extension model and have complete BC 14, and with this go to the cloud, or should we first convert to BC 22 on-prem and with this go to the cloud?
That's basically one of our first slides. Yeah. So you have to make some analysis of your solution. First of all, maybe just some of the parts are not re-implementable, and then you go to the cloud. But if you are using too much features which are not supported on the cloud, too much customization of base app, not existing events. So, and you really need that customization. There is no another event to re-implement it similarly. Then first thing is to go to on-prem, of course, but yeah, and to request basically the event. But like mentioned before, event also requesting would be like one-on-one until it was like this point. So those all requested events upward. So this is just from the conversations and so on. So those requested events in future will be reviewed much carefully, and questions will be asked, or maybe why do you really need it here and not there? Why can't you use basically event which is just 2 lines above? So yeah, if you really think that the event is needed at that point for your implementation and that other partners can benefit from it, then it is way to go. And go to on-prem, request basically publishers which are missing, and then basically go to cloud. Or if it is not basically the crucial functionality, you can go to the cloud, make to-dos basically for your missing functionality if it is just some of the functionality and you can live without it. Then after the events are added, you can just bring it back. That's on the same way. But it really depends from really lot of factors, and the whole analysis of also database and objects needs to be reconsidered. And yeah, of course, database decisions should be made. So there is no unique, basically, step to tell.
What is the universal way where to go?
It really depends from your goals and the company goals, how they want to go with that strategy.
Take the box back. Do you have any more questions? I don't see any hands, so thank you very much for your time and for listening to us today. I hope that we answered some of your questions. Thank you.